It wasn't a lightning bolt of inspiration that changed the world. It was a storm, built one disciplined spark at a time. Thomas Edison didn't just dream of a brighter world. He engineered the process that made brightness itself inevitable. He understood something few people of his era could even imagine. That invention didn't have to depend on luck or sudden flashes of genius. It could be produced, manufactured, repeated. Most men of his time believed discovery was an act of divine chance, the muse visiting a chosen few. Edison believed otherwise. To him, invention was industrial, predictable, a matter of persistence, process, and people. At Menlo Park, New Jersey, he built what he called his invention factory, a laboratory like no other, not a dusty workshop filled with solitary tinkerers, but a humming production line of scientists, machinists, and dreamers. Each day they clocked in, not to hope for ideas, but to make them. Every screw turned, every experiment logged, every failure dissected, all part of a larger system designed to force progress out of chaos. He paid his team well, but he demanded more, obsession. They worked under the glow of gas lamps late into the night, chasing solutions that could electrify humanity. The air was thick with heat, sweat, and burning ambition. Edison often stayed awake for days, pacing the floors, demanding results, and the world outside had no idea what was coming. When he first declared his mission to light the world, people laughed. Gas companies mocked him. Journalists dismissed him as a showman. But Edison didn't waste his time convincing anyone. He let the noise fuel the silence of his laboratory, because he knew that in that silence, the future was already being written. The invention of the light bulb wasn't a single spark of brilliance. It was 1,000 failures organized into one success. It wasn't one man, his inspiration. It was one man's system. And that's what made Thomas Edison different. He didn't just invent the light bulb, he invented the method for inventing. He industrialized genius itself. Because while the world worshipped miracles, Edison was busy building the machine that could make them. And soon, that machine would illuminate more than cities. It would electrify civilization. But how does a boy with barely 3 months of formal education rise to control the flow of human progress itself? That story begins with struggle. And in Edison's case, it began with failure. Most people run from failure as if it burns. Edison ran toward it as if it were gold. He understood a truth so simple yet so few ever live by it, that failure is not the opposite of success. It's the raw material from which success is forged. Every broken filament, every shattered prototype, every sleepless night in Menlo Park. To him, it wasn't wasted effort. It was data. It was the blueprint of discovery revealing itself, one failure at a time. When Edison and his team began the race to create a practical electric light, the odds were impossible. Hundreds had tried and failed before him. Scientists across Europe dismissed the idea as fantasy. Investors doubted him. Even his closest colleagues wondered if he was chasing a mirage. But Edison refused to let frustration dictate his fate. He built his resilience like he built his machines, through repetition and refinement. For months, he and his men experimented with every material they could find: cotton, hemp, bamboo, even human hair. Each attempt brought disappointment, yet also revelation. 6,000 trials, 6,000 ways that didn't work. Until one day, when asked how he could endure so much failure, he smiled and said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." That single sentence captures the entire philosophy of invention, that the road to brilliance is paved with mistakes courageously examined. Edison wasn't powered by confidence alone. He was powered by curiosity. He wanted to know why something didn't work more than he wanted to celebrate when it did. That made him unstoppable. Because failure can only break those who take it personally. Edison never saw failure as a reflection of his worth, only as a reflection of the world's hidden patterns waiting to be solved. To him, every burnt filament, every broken glass bulb was a whisper from the universe saying, "Not this way, try again." And try again he did. Night after night, he turned defeat into momentum. He transformed the pain of error into the power of iteration. It was this alchemy, the ability to turn failure into progress, that separated him from every dreamer who quit too soon. Because Edison's true invention wasn't the light bulb itself, it was the psychology behind it, the belief that persistence can turn even the darkest night into day. But persistence alone doesn't create an empire. Somewhere between exhaustion and obsession, Edison would find the moment that changed everything, the turning point where determination met destiny. A brilliant idea is a ghost. It can haunt your mind for years, whispering possibilities, but it has no power until it takes physical form. Thomas Edison understood this better than anyone alive. While others glorified imagination, he worshipped execution. Ideas were cheap, action was sacred. Edison's genius wasn't in thinking differently, it was in doing relentlessly. He didn't wait for perfect moments or divine inspiration. He rolled up his sleeves, dirtied his hands, and transformed theory into tangible progress. His laboratory was not a sanctuary of thought, it was a battlefield of trial. Every table stained with oil, every wall lined with sketches, every bench echoing the rhythm of hammer and spark. He believed that ideas only deserved respect if they could work. He once said, "Vision without execution is hallucination." And he meant it. The phonograph is a perfect example. When he first envisioned capturing sound, the world thought it impossible. The idea of storing a human voice seemed magical, almost absurd. Yet Edison didn't stop at imagination. He built the machine that could trap sound itself. He designed the wax cylinders, engineered the playback needles, and even established the first recording studios so that music, speeches, and emotion could be sold, shared, and replayed across time. He didn't just invent a product, he invented an industry. This was the essence of his mindset, total, ruthless completion. Others discussed ideas in endless meetings. Edison turned them into empires. He didn't romanticize the process, he dominated it. His team often said that when Edison wanted something built, the question wasn't if it could be done, it was when they'd be finished. He demanded progress every single day, and he held himself to the same impossible standard. Because for Edison, the measure of intelligence was not how much you could imagine, but how much you could manifest. And that mindset, execution over theory, progress over perfection, is what transformed him from a dreamer into a world builder. He showed that it's not the brilliance of the idea that matters, but the discipline of bringing it to life. The true mark of genius, he proved, is not creativity, it's completion. And that's why Edison didn't just dream of the future, he built it. But the light of genius never shines alone. Behind every visionary lies a deeper game, a strategy to turn innovation into power. And Edison's next move would prove that invention was only half the battle. The real empire was built through control. Edison didn't just want to invent things, he wanted to own the world they lived in. He knew that true power never lies in the product alone, but in the system that surrounds it. Anyone could build a light bulb, but not everyone could build the world that made light possible. That was Edison's genius. He didn't sell bulbs, he sold electricity. He sold the future itself. When he introduced his incandescent lamp, most people saw it as a clever gadget, a novelty. But Edison saw something infinitely larger, a revolution that would demand an entire ecosystem. So he built it from the ground up. He designed the generators that created power. He founded companies to manufacture the wiring that carried it. He hired engineers to map the first electric grids and design meters to measure usage. Every part of the system, from the bulb to the breaker, flowed through his control. And in 1882, on Pearl Street in Lower Manhattan, he flipped the switch that changed human civilization forever. It was the world's first commercial power station. Within seconds, the streets of New York glowed with artificial daylight, and for the first time in history, night itself could be conquered by man. That moment wasn't about light. It was about control. Edison had done something extraordinary. He had turned an invention into an empire. By owning every layer, the production, the distribution, and the consumption, he made himself indispensable. If you wanted electricity, you needed Edison. That's the brilliance of what modern entrepreneurs now call a full-stack strategy. Don't just create a product, create the environment it lives in, control the supply, the delivery, and the experience. It's the difference between being an inventor and being a ruler. This mindset would echo through time, shaping the strategies of future titans, from Rockefeller's control of oil to Apple's control of hardware and software. Edison was the prototype. He built an entire industrial ecosystem decades before anyone else understood the power of vertical integration. His light bulb didn't just glow, it connected him to every household, every business, every city that sought to modernize. He wasn't simply changing the world's nights into days. He was laying the foundation for the corporate empires of the next century. But as Edison's empire expanded and the world illuminated under his command, a storm was brewing. Another visionary was rising, a man with a different kind of brilliance, one that would challenge Edison's system to its core. The world was about to witness a war of light and power. Innovation is only half the battle. The other half is the war for belief. Thomas Edison understood this better than almost anyone who ever lived. The war of currents wasn't just a fight between two electrical systems. It was a war for the human mind. On one side stood Edison, the master of direct current, the man who had already lit up New York and become a symbol of American progress. On the other stood George Westinghouse and Nikola Tesla, champions of alternating current, a more efficient, more scalable form of electricity that threatened to make Edison's empire obsolete. What followed wasn't just a technological clash, it was psychological warfare at its most brutal. Edison knew he couldn't stop AC with logic alone. The science behind alternating current was strong, and the engineers backing it were brilliant. But Edison also knew something far more powerful. People don't think in equations. They think in emotions. And fear is the most powerful emotion of all. So he launched a campaign not of data, but of dread. He publicly electrocuted animals, dogs, calves, even an elephant, using alternating current to prove its danger. He coined the word to Westinghouse as a synonym for execution. He even lent his influence to the first electric chair, knowing that if death itself could be tied to AC power, the public would never trust it. It was dark, manipulative, and deeply effective. Because Edison wasn't just selling a current, he was selling safety. He understood that in business, perception is as real as performance. The most powerful companies in history aren't built solely on innovation. They're built on the stories people believe about them. Edison engineered that story masterfully. He used newspapers, demonstrations, and public fear to frame himself as the protector of the people, the man bringing light safely into their homes, while painting his rivals as reckless dealers in invisible death. It was a masterclass in narrative control, and a chilling reminder that in every age the crowd doesn't always follow the truth. They follow whoever controls the spotlight. Yet even as his tactics grew darker, one truth became undeniable. Edison's genius extended beyond invention. He understood psychology, how to shape opinion, how to influence emotion, how to turn fear into power. In the end, the war of currents would not destroy him, but it would expose the limits of domination and reveal the next great lesson of empire, that every victory, no matter how brilliant, comes at a price. And for Edison, that price was just beginning to appear. Before the world knew the term personal brand, Thomas Edison had already perfected it. In an age before mass media, before television, before celebrity culture, Edison turned himself into something larger than life, the living embodiment of American progress. He wasn't just a man of science, he was the story of invention itself. Every article, every photograph, every headline fed the myth of the Wizard of Menlo Park. The press adored him, and he knew exactly how to make them. Edison carefully cultivated his image as the humble genius, the relentless worker, the plain-spoken American tinkerer who never gave up. Reporters were invited into his labs, where they watched him work through the night, his sleeves rolled up, his eyes burning with purpose. They saw what Edison wanted them to see, the theater of genius. And it worked. Newspapers couldn't get enough of him. His name became synonymous with progress, determination, and ingenuity. Investors threw money at his ventures. Talented young engineers begged to join his team. The public believed in him completely, not just in his inventions, but in him as an idea. Edison had transformed himself into a symbol, and that symbol was his most powerful invention of all. It was branding at its purest form, decades before the word even existed. He understood something timeless. People don't buy products. They buy beliefs. And Edison made them believe. He sold not just electricity or sound or motion pictures. He sold the promise of human advancement, the faith that one man's determination could reshape the future. His image of ceaseless work, moral discipline, and optimism became part of America's identity itself. That myth opened doors no patent could. It brought him deals, influence, and cultural immortality. Edison's fame became his currency, and he spent it wisely. Every public appearance, every interview, every triumph, H reinforced the legend. And like all great strategists, he knew that perception wasn't a byproduct of success. It was success. The stronger the myth, the stronger the empire. Yet behind the legend of the smiling inventor stood a man exhausted by his own ambition. His empire had grown vast, his rivals fierce, and the world he helped electrify was now racing beyond his control. The light he created was spreading, but it was no longer his alone. And soon, Edison would face a truth he could no longer engineer his way around, that even the brightest stars eventually fade. No empire is ever built by one man alone. Edison understood that greatness is never the work of a single pair of hands. It is the result of an orchestra. And he was its conductor. His genius didn't just lie in inventing things. It lay in assembling the people, resources, and relationships that could make those inventions reshape the world. He surrounded himself with a team he affectionately called his muckers, machinists, chemists, physicists, and craftsmen who worked tirelessly alongside him in the dimly lit halls of Menlo Park. They were his creative army, drawn not by money alone, but by the magnetic pull of his vision. Each one specialized in a different part of the process, yet Edison's mind connected them all, turning scattered talents into synchronized innovation. He created a system where discovery wasn't accidental, it was engineered. But Edison's power extended far beyond his lab. He understood another rule of empire. Ideas need capital, and he was a master at attracting it. Men like J.P. Morgan, the financial titan of his time, and Henry Villard, the railroad magnate, saw in Edison not just an inventor, but an investment in the future. They bankrolled his boldest projects, from lighting Manhattan to building electric rail systems. Edison didn't just partner with powerful men, he aligned himself with them. He built a bridge between science and finance, between innovation and industry. His network became a living organism of progress, pulsing with ambition and money. And in that synergy, between the minds who built and the men who funded, Edison found the true multiplier of his genius. Because brilliance alone changes little, but brilliance connected to influence changes everything. This was Edison's unseen mastery. He understood that power compounds. Every mind he hired, every investor he inspired, every journalist he charmed, all became part of his expanding network of energy and authority. He wasn't merely inventing products, he was inventing systems of power, and through those systems he built a reach that no single invention could ever achieve. His story reminds us of a timeless truth. Success isn't created in isolation. It's built through the alliances we forge, the people we empower, and the networks we sustain. Edison's legacy wasn't just his patents, it was the ecosystem he built around them. If you're enjoying this story, subscribe for more timeless lessons on how power truly flows. Because the deeper we go into the minds of history's titans, the more we uncover the blueprint of greatness itself. But even the man who lit the world could not escape the shadows that follow power. For every light cast across humanity, there is a cost hidden in its glow. And in Edison's final chapter lies the most human lesson of all, that no matter how bright one burns, every flame must face its end. Thomas Edison's greatest invention was not the light bulb, nor the phonograph, nor the motion picture camera. His true creation was something far greater, the modern world itself. A world powered by systems, driven by innovation, and defined by the relentless belief that humanity can solve any problem through effort, discipline, and will. Before Edison, progress was an accident, something discovered by chance. After him, it became a process. He transformed invention from art into industry, turning the solitary pursuit of genius into an organized force that could reshape entire civilizations. His legacy is not measured in the 1,000 patents he left behind, but in the mindset he left imprinted on humanity. The belief that ideas are not miracles, they are the logical consequence of persistence. That the impossible is simply the inevitable waiting for someone stubborn enough to make it real. Edison didn't just light the world, he lit the human spirit. He proved that progress doesn't belong to the gifted few. It belongs to those who refuse to quit. He taught that the frontier of human potential isn't discovered in inspiration, but in applied vision. In showing up, again and again, when failure has stripped everything but faith. Even his rivals, from Tesla to Westinghouse, built their futures on the foundation Edison had laid, a foundation of structured innovation, organized ambition, and the relentless pursuit of better. Every startup, every research lab, every entrepreneur standing against the odds today echoes the same silent philosophy that Edison lived by, that vision means nothing without execution, and that persistence is the most powerful form of genius. His empire may have been made of glass, copper, and current, but its true substance was belief. Belief in the capacity of mankind to bend nature, time, and circumstance to its will. Edison's story is not one of perfection. It's one of perseverance. He stumbled, he failed, he fought, but he finished. And in doing so, he rewired what it means to dream. So when you flip a switch, when light floods the darkness, you're not just witnessing electricity, you're witnessing proof. Proof that one man's refusal to surrender can illuminate the world. Edison's light still burns, not just in our cities, but in every human being who dares to chase the impossible. Because his truest legacy is this: greatness doesn't come from having ideas. It comes from applying them until the world has no choice but to change. This was Thomas Edison's vision, and he left it for all of us to carry forward. If this story moved you, subscribe for more timeless stories of visionaries who shaped the world and the lessons that still power the future. To invent, you need a good imagination and a pile of junk. Those were Edison's words, simple, humble, and deeply revealing. Because behind that pile of junk was the story of humanity itself. Our eternal desire to turn chaos into creation, failure into progress, and dreams into something the world can touch. Edison's genius wasn't just in what he built, but in how he thought. He proved that success is not born from luck or brilliance alone, but from a relentless will, the kind that refuses to surrender when the world stops believing. Every flicker of light, every echo of sound, every electric hum that defines our modern lives traces back to that same willpower. Edison didn't just electrify the world, he redefined what it means to be human, to imagine endlessly, to build obsessively, and to never stop improving. If the story of Thomas Edison moved you, if you're inspired by the psychology of giants who shaped our world through sheer vision and grit, then subscribe for more. Because the next story will take you even deeper into the minds behind money, power, and progress. The men who didn't just dream of the future, they built it.